Hello everybody. Welcome to my lecture, Unit 22, Hume's Skeptical Empiricism. Hume, as a successor of Locke's empiricism, J.Locke founded modern empiricism, which denied innate ideas and sought the possibility of knowledge upon sensation. Only sensations are said to make ideas knowledge. The mind or understanding is like an empty cabinet before the inflow of the ideas through the senses. Locke admitted that besides sensation, the reflection, that is, internal sensation, which is also able to produce ideas. Locke divided ideas into simple and complex ideas. Complex ideas consist of simple ideas. For example, the hand feels the softness and the warmth in the same piece of wax. Therefore, the complex idea is solely the aggregate of simple, distinct ideas. Hume followed basically the above-mentioned theory of Locke, except some transformation of terminology. Hume united idea and the sensation by Locke into the perception, and he united the sensation and the reflection into the inflection, while he emphasized the causal relationship between the impression and the idea. The former causes the latter. However, as will be afterwards disclosed, the causal relationship of idea and impression could be contracted by his denial of causality. In this relation, Hume's thought seemed to be problematic. All the perceptions of the human mind resolve themselves into two distinct kinds, which I shall call impressions and ideas. David Hume, A Treatise of Human Nature, 1748. Look at the diagram. Perception divided into idea and impression. Impression is divided into sensation and reflection. It's Hume's representation system, or his worldview. Second chapter, the causal relationship of impressions and ideas. Hume's strength of argument derives from the simplified relationship of impressions and idea. That all our simple ideas in their first appearance are divided from simple impressions which are correspondent to them and which they exactly present. Treatise, page 4. Like Locke, who said that having ideas and perceptions are the same thing, Hume's notion of ideas is derived from correspondent to represent that of impressions. Hume's use of the idea is in the ordinary meaning of the word the same as the name of the things or the universal, while his use of the impressions being same as the sensation perception. Shortly, Hume's idea corresponds to the universal and the impression to the particular. However, Hume expresses the intimate relationship of ideas and impressions when he says as follows: that idea of red which we form in the dark and impressions which strike our eyes in sunshine differ only in degree, not in nature. Treatise, page 3. Impressions and ideas differ only in their strength and vivacity. An idea is a weaker impression. In this regard, Hume's use of ideas is meant to be the name of things with their image, with their set image or after image of things. Therefore, the use of the ideas is in Hume's treatise the abstract idea of things as well as concrete ideas of it as after image imagination. Furthermore, Hume follows Berkeley while he involves ideas and impressions in the perception, which means internal occurrence. In this regard, Hume agrees with Berkeley's idealism. Esse est percipi. Neither ideas nor impressions are external object reality. They are my representations and perceptions. In this respect, Hume differs from Locke. The realistic empiricism. Hume is on the side of Berkeley. The idealistic empiricism. Chapter 3. The problem of a complex idea, imagination, and habit. Hume's great contribution to the development of history lies in his criticism of the concept of causality. Through the analysis of the ideas and impressions, however, Hume came to deny not only the metaphysics and the science in his time, but also the ordinary life. Hume's refutation of traditional conceptions consists mainly in the trace of the origin of the idea notions. The criteria of the criticism was the possibility of a reduction of any ideas to the original impression. In other words, if a certain idea has its original impression, the idea is legitimate, but if an idea lacks its corresponding impression, the idea is false. The traceability of an idea to its corresponding impression proves the validity of that idea. According to Hume's fundamental empiricism of the impression idea, there is no denying the impression and the corresponding idea. A simple idea is necessitated by the corresponding simple impressions. Therefore, simple ideas cannot be false. For example, the idea of the color red come into being necessarily through the prior impression red, which means that there is no error, illusion, deception, or fiction in the kingdom of the simple ideas. All the simple ideas are true. Therefore, the possibility of the first is to be sought in the other kingdom. Fidelis said, in the realm of complex ideas. Hume's words. I perceive, therefore, that though there is in general a great resemblance betwixt our complex impressions and ideas, yet the rule is not universally true. Treatise, page 3. In some complex ideas, the rule of the resemblance or correspondence between impression and idea is not to be followed. Human mind uses its imagination in order to make complex ideas from simple ideas. The way of making complex ideas is called the rules of the association or connection of ideas, which consist in resemblance, contiguity in time and place, and cause and effect. Contrary to simple ideas and the simple impression, complex idea has the possibility of error because the connection is not an impression but an imagination, or in the words of Kant, the function of understanding. By Hume, the function of mind or understanding is taken for the source of error or falsity when it has no corresponding impression. Therefore, the above-mentioned three rules of the association of ideas are not the rules to be found in the reality, but that of inventing illusory ideas. Human imagination is inclined to produce the similar object to the reality, impression. Insofar as the illusion obeys the rule of association, it is distinguished from private creative illusion, fantasy. By Hume, a lot of important notions of science and philosophy came into being through the association of ideas. Therefore, the imagination which produced resembling ideas is not temporary or private, but old and general. This imagination is compared to the inborn propensity of human reason by Immanuel Kant. The imagination must by long custom acquire the same method of thinking and run along the parts of space and time in conceiving its object. The treatise, page 11. On the basis of the association of ideas, Hume denies some basic concepts of the mathematics, geometry, and philosophy. For example, he analyzed the idea of extension, which recurs to the line segment. There is no possibility of seeing or feeling the extension, the endless extension. However, human mind contrived the concept of the extension through the association of ideas. Therefore, the idea of space or extension is nothing but the idea of visible or tangible points distributed in a certain color. Treatise 53. We humans can see only a limited line segment. However, the imagination supposes the idea of unlimited lines through the principle of contiguity and causality. In this regard, Hume denies the geometry. Chapter 4. Denial of causality. Hume was famous for his denial of the causality. However, from the above-mentioned impression reductionism, his denial of the relation of cause and effect can easily understood. Hume analyzed the concept of the causality into two moments, that is, the contiguity of cause effect and the priority of time in the cause before the effect, as will be presented soon. In other words, the contiguity and the succession are essential in causal relation. As already stated, the cause and effect is one of the three rules of the association of ideas. Hume's argument is very simple. The idea of causality doesn't have its corresponding impression. The two related ideas of causality, that is, contiguity and the succession, have their corresponding impressions. However, the causality itself is not to be seen or observed. In this regard, Hume rejected the Newtonian mechanics when he asserts as follows. Motion in one body is regarded upon impulse as the course of motion in another. When we consider three objects with the utmost attention, we find only that one body approaches the other and that the motion of it precedes that of the other, but without any sensible interval. Beautiful picture. Ball A is ball B. In Newtonian mechanics, if the ball A collides with the ball B, the motion of ball A is the cause of the motion of the ball B. The momentum of A is conserved before and after the collision. However, Hume's skepticism objects the physical law of conservation of momentum, because without that causality, the law of motion or momentum is impossible to explain. Hume, as impression positivist, doesn't accept anything beyond the sensory object that is impression. His doctrine is therefore very restrictive in science as well as philosophy. As a matter of fact, Hume's impression positivism even denies everyday life consisting of all kinds of causality. Chapter 5. Hume's criticism of dogmatic metaphysics, the case Spinoza. As over discussed, Hume tried to overturn the fundamental of traditional science and philosophy on the basis of the association of ideas. Concerning the criticism of philosophy, Hume refers especially to that of Spinoza. There is only one substance, says he, in the world, and that substance is perfectly simple and indivisible, and exists without any local presence. Whatever we discover externally by sensation, whatever we feel internally by reflection, all these are nothing but modification of that one simple and necessarily existent being, and are possessed of any separate or distinct extension. Treatise 240. Spinoza's philosophy of the one substance is by Hume likely to be criticized. The idea of substance has no impression. Both are defined by Spinoza as the things which inhere in and are conceived through substance. The notions like substance and modes by Spinoza are not be derived from their preceding perception, impression. Therefore, Spinoza's system is to be falsified. 6. Conclusion. Human skepticism is one of the most strong objections against the truth of science, philosophy, and finally everyday life. However, the theory like this cannot be sustainable even by the author Hume himself, as he confessed in his writing. The philosopher also should live according to the belief in the general maxims of the world. I am ready to throw all my books and the paper into the fire and resolve never more to renounce the pleasure of life for the sake of reasoning and philosophy. Treatise 269. The general maxims of the world lie first of all in the causality. When the belief of causality is doubted, man cannot sustain himself. This is the end of lecture. Thank you so much. See you again.